Okay, so welcome back. Feature picture story, our last picture story category before we move into portfolios. This category has 23 entries. Same thing. We'll look at every entry. We'll look at everything big for 3 seconds. I'll read the story summary. Some of the summaries will be long, so they're going to go past probably when the pictures run through, but I'm going to read everything just so you have all that information to make your decisions. But before we get started, I'll read off the category description. It's a multiple picture entry of a story, series, or sequence on a general human interest subject. So clear as mud, right? And with that, we will get started. 1 second. All right. Organ recipients have been at a greater risk during the pandemic due to weakened immune systems. On August 20th, 2017, at the age of 9, Jocelyn was diagnosed with hepatoblastoma, a childhood liver cancer. Her cancer was fast growing and categorized as a hybrid because it showed up so late in her childhood. Jocelyn was in her 4th round of chemotherapy and awaiting a liver transplant when Kiera passed away. Her organ now lives in Jocelyn. Kiera was 11 when she died of an asthma attack on the way to the emergency room in her mother's car, and Jocelyn was 9 when she received her liver. The 2 girls looked extremely similar at the time. Quote, "The doctors came in after surgery and told us it was a perfect fit, like they were just putting her own liver back into her body," said her stepfather, Aaron Mowry. Jocelyn and Kiera's families have been living in a chaotic normal for the past 3 years. Jocelyn fosters a relationship not only with her own family, but Kiera's parents, her donor's family as well. Jocelyn is now able to do anything she wants as the pandemic begins to come to an end. The 2 families have also been finding a new normal together since the chaos in October of 2017. This one doesn't have a story summary, but I'll read the first caption. Rob Atkinson and Leah Bartel walk alongside Sam, a 25-year-old Belgian draft horse, as he tills a garden at Turner Farm in Indian Hill on July 7th. Sam is one of the 6 horses used for plowing, tilling, and other needs to further the sustainable farm movement that the Turner Farm believes in. After 30 years of teaching, the last thing Danita McLaughlin thought was that she would spend the next few years surrounded by even more children. However, after her 2 daughters, Miranda and Melanie, began to have families of their own, she immediately stepped into her new role of the always available grandmother. Quote, "I wasn't planning on babysitting," Danita McLaughlin said. "That wasn't ever in my mind after retiring." Now, based on the day of the week, she and her husband are part of a musical chairs game of grandchildren as they go to various homes and are dropped off and picked up by a rotation of parents. Although some days she comes home dead tired, Danita wouldn't trade all the extra time she gets to have with her grandchildren as they grow up. She knows they always won't need her to change their clothes, cook them breakfast, or be able to fall asleep on her lap while she reads to them, so she cherishes every moment she has now. The 2021 Erie County Fair marked the final year Abigail Abby Schmidt could participate as a 4-H member before aging out of the program. While Schmidt showed several animals, she developed a passion for showing sheep. She put blood, sweat, and tears into her market lamb project, sheep named Lambo. During her market lamb class, Schmidt was awarded Grand Champion. When market animals win Grand Champion Reserve, they are terminal. It was an emotional time for Schmidt, who said Lambo was such a good partner for her. She didn't want to say goodbye, but Schmidt was happy to make her farm and family proud. Quote, "I love building a bond with my animals, and although it's hard to sell them and market them at the end of my project, I find comfort in knowing I gave them the best life possible," she said. Picking out a Christmas tree is a tradition for many families. Hidden Pines Christmas Tree Farm in Clyde grows Scotch pine, blue spruce, Norway spruce, and other trees on its 18 acres of land. On Hidden Pines' first full day of business on November 26th, customers visited the tree farm nonstop. Yeah, so I'm gonna get rid of this star. There we go. Hang on just a second. Christina Woolen is a full-time nurse and has been caring for her adopted daughters, Zoe and Okalani, who both have serious lung conditions, since she became their foster mother when Okalani was 4 months and Zoe was 1 month old. Due to their lung conditions, they are categorized as high risk. Christina worries that they will be hit hard by COVID-19 were they to catch it, and so has done her best to keep them safe and well cared for through the hard times posed by the coronavirus pandemic. Zoe and Okalani rarely spend time with friends and virtually never go to playgrounds. On the rare occasion that happens, it's an empty playground with masks still on and a change of clothes before they get back in the car. They haven't been able to return to preschool either, just in case another kid not wearing a mask were to cough in one of their faces. The fight to protect them is all-encompassing, with Christina working hard to keep them from having to battle an invisible adversary. Quote, "I don't know if they would survive COVID, but I'm really trying hard not to find out," she says. The nation's return to normal does not apply to everyone, and their family is among those who remain waiting for better days while the country reopens around them. Okay. Jacinta moved on to the United States from the Republic of Marshall Islands after falling in love with her boyfriend, Michael, while he and his dad visited the islands. Most people migrate to the U.S. from the Republic of the Marshall Islands for job opportunities. Before the first atomic bomb was detonated on Bikini Atoll in the tiny nation of the Marshall Islands, and before areas of the islands were dubbed the, quote, Pacific Proving Grounds, because of the U.S. military's nuclear tests from 1946 to 1958, the islanders living on these atolls were told that they would be able to return home following the tests. They were not told how long the testing would last. When snow danced on their tropical homes, it was days before they were told it was nuclear fallout. When their skin burned and their hair fell out from the radiation exposure, they were not informed that the U.S. government was monitoring their health conditions as an ongoing research study. The United States used their remote island nation and them to test one of the most destructive weapons ever invented repeatedly. After 67 nuclear tests in 75 years, American compensation programs for this period of nuclear testing have been instituted. Yet these programs have not fully addressed all aspects of the issue, such as the far-reaching effects and long-lasting nature of radiation. After signing the Compact of Free Association with the U.S. in '86, the Marshallese were promised Medicare and Medicaid access, which they could use to treat any ongoing health complications from the nuclear tests. They were also allowed to relocate to the United States with special non-resident status as compensation. However, access to these healthcare programs was stripped in 1996 by the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act. For the next 25 years, Marshallese citizens residing in the United States were deemed ineligible for state-supported healthcare coverage. In December of 2020, Congress finally restored this access. Some of those living with their exacerbated health issues from this long-time healthcare crisis are only now able to begin seeking care. Private First Class Winchester was just 20 years old when he was captured by Chinese People's Volunteer Forces in 1950 during combat operations near Unsan People's Republic of Korea. In February of 1951, PFC Winchester died of malnutrition at POW Camp Number 5 in Pyeongtaong DPRK. His remains were returned to the U.S. in 1954, but records were unreliable and his identity cannot be confirmed. Winchester was buried as unknown soldier X-13442 in the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific. It would take 70 years, scientific milestones, and in-depth historical analysis before PFC William Winchester could be identified and come home to his family in Lima, Ohio. Sorry. From Kentucky, a careful observer can squint beyond the banks of the Ohio River and spot the village of Ripley, Ohio. Nearly 200 years ago, freedom seekers traveling on the Underground Railroad would look to that village beckoning them across. It was a beacon of hope for a world without the perils of slavery. Experts estimate that Ohio had about 3,000 miles of routes on the railroad, almost all of which crossed the Ohio River. Ripley, a major point on the railroad, stands out. It was a place where both Black and white residents worked together as abolitionists, moving those who made it across the river out of dangerous way. Today, more than 150 years after Union soldiers told the last enslaved people living in Texas that the Emancipation Proclamation had set them free, some descendants of those freedom seekers and abolitionists who crossed into Ripley still reside in the Ohio River Valley. Their descendants are acutely aware of how the past and present are so intimately tied and how their ancestors' legacies live on through them today. Oh, hang on a second. To visually connect the past to the present, these portraits were made using a large format camera and a dry collodion photographic process, a recreation of the ferrotype process common during the mid to late 19th century. The physical tintype images were then copied with a digital camera. As one of Chillicothe, Ohio's only drag performers, Jess Bone is well known in the tight-knit rural LGBTQ community in this part of Appalachian, Ohio. Despite a deep passion for music and high school theater background, Jess never really felt confident performing until she came out as lesbian. Now she performs as drag king Pedro Grande, a self-described, quote, psycho Mick Jagger. Her latest performance at the largest drag show in the town of 2200, her latest performance at the largest drag show the town of 22,000 has ever seen is a moment that feels natural, but really it's earned. It's not enough for Jess or other members of the LGBTQ community here to be accepted. They want to be celebrated. Callie Schaefer and Rachel Loomis are two women working with nonprofit Living Lands and Waters doing, quote, industrial strength river cleanup throughout the United States. In 2021, the group collected over 500,000 pounds of trash across 7 rivers throughout the US. Most of that garbage, 355,000 pounds or 63% of it, came from the Ohio River. It's a source of drinking water for over 5 million Americans and a body of water experts say is polluted by a layered and systematic environmental death of 1,000 cuts. The group is many things: a river cleanup, a band of modern-day deckhands living on a barge, educators who host watershed conservation initiatives and workshops, and even a group of tree planters. Quote, recycling should be marketed as patriotic, said founder Chad Pregracke. And I think if more people thought about conserving America's resources in that way, more would do it. Over the last 2 decades, the group has carved out a small pocket of positive change, driven by hard work, education, and empathy. Their mission, not just environmental restoration, but a bonding experience between each other and our natural resources along the river towns and muddy shorelines of rural America. Kenny Betts Jr. wraps his 13-year-old daughter Harmony up in a hug before her second compact division race at Barberton Speedway on Saturday. 2 weeks ago, Harmony became the first driver in the new division, which is intended for new and younger drivers. After 80 years serving as the organist at Lexington United Methodist Church, Miriam Hendershot, 93, showed up to play during the church's final service. Kathy Green, 63, drinks a cup of coffee at 4:47 a.m. at her home in the Plains, Ohio, Wednesday, October 20th, before sending off her daughter, Sarah King, on a week-long trip to Florida later in the morning. Green is the matriarch of the household, which consists of herself, King, King's son, Skylar King, and a granddaughter, Aaliyah Dienes. Type 1 diabetes is a form of diabetes where the pancreas ceases to produce insulin and is a chronic disease. For the roughly 1.5 million diagnosed type 1 Americans, they need to take insulin to manage their blood glucose levels or they will die. A research brief produced by the Healthcare Cost Institute on spending of individuals with type 1 diabetes found the average annual cost to manage type 1 was $18,494 in 2018. According to a study prepared for the Department of Health and Human Services, insulin costs have been rising steadily since 2012, between 15 and 17% per year. Before that, the cost of insulin tripled between 2003 and 2012, according to the American Diabetes Association. And because of the cost of managing type 1 diabetes, around 25% of type 1 Americans have had to or are having to ration their insulin. While I understand the importance of these statistics, it is also important to establish an emotional connection between the audience and the story. And that's what this project aims to do, to humanize the conversation surrounding the cost of insulin and to help the audience relate to the people it impacts. I was tasked for a semester with producing a photographic essay on the community of Stuart. To begin the journey of understanding, I researched the history, commerce, and governance of the community and started talking to everyone I could find. What I found was a variety of community value. For some, it was a temporary place to live. For others, they had deep generational connection to the community, in some instances, dating as far back as the late 1800s. One of the most telling examples I found of what community means to its residents was through the story of one resident in particular, Gregory Gilkey. Gilkey is widely regarded in the community of around 250 as the mayor of Stuart, even though according to Ohio law, the community is too small to officially have one. In the early 2000s, Gilkey found himself in legal trouble, which later was resolved. However, at the time, the community flocked to his aid, raising funds to post bail and writing a petition to the judge stating their confidence, trust, and belief in Gilkey and that he was innocent. It is common to find Gilkey sitting in the back of his truck at Poston, Stuart's only convenience store, drinking tea, waiting to see if he can help the local volunteer fire department, or chatting with residents by the fire as night falls, or driving around delivering food boxes to those in need. Gilkey is represented by a single photograph in the story, but his role in the community is critical to understanding Stuart. Solar energy represents a change for Kentucky, whose economic prospects have long been tied to labor-intensive industries like coal and tobacco. But that change is coming through tax credits, infrastructure deals, and climate change incentives. According to Reuters, the Biden administration hopes solar could power 40% of the US by 2035. That means a massive transition world, nation, and region-wide. Community solar projects have been authorized in 19 states, and farmers around the country are making the switch. In Harrison County, that vision of the future is not yet a reality. The solar future is more personal than money or energy for this community. No one wants to lose the land where they've invested their lives. Kim Neese, a nurse practitioner, administers the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine to Lisa Walker at the Long Branch Tavern in Laurel, Indiana on Monday, June 7, 2021. After Walker's 15-minute observation period, she took a shot of tequila as part of the shot for a shot promotion by the Franklin County Health Department. 4 to 5 people in Franklin County are unvaccinated, the lowest vaccination rate in greater Cincinnati and the 4th lowest among Indiana's 92 counties. Poor rural towns like Laurel, where the median income is about half that of the rest of the nation, are a big reason why. Fear, distrust, and politics still dominate conversations about the vaccine among Laurel's 500 residents, complicating the job of public health officials who worry the growing gap in America between communities with high and low vaccination rates will keep the pandemic going for years. In 2018, a devastating wildfire tore through Philmont Scout Ranch, the Boy Scouts of America's largest high adventure base in Cimarron, New Mexico. The Ute Park fire caused the ranch to close to participants for the entire summer, the first time in its nearly 80-year history. In the aftermath of the fire, ranch leadership is looking at new ways to manage the threat of wildfire in the 140,000-acre camp. Gloucester, Ohio is a former coal town in Appalachian, Ohio. While the population has dwindled over the last decade, the once nicknamed Magic City still has a population of people who love it, defend it, and are working on improving it. The ranching department at Philmont Scout Ranch in Cimarron, New Mexico is upholding the Boy Scouts of America's original promise to benefactor Wade Phillips, keeping the land a working cattle ranch. With a small staff of full-time cowboys and a rotating batch of seasonal staff, the ranching department stays busy. Sam Sikorski is the 29-year-old mayor of her hometown, Gloucester, Ohio. While working for the county in Athens, Sam is also helping her boyfriend, Tyler McDonald, raise his sons, Audie and Cannon. In the summer of 2021, the boys of Scouts USA Troops 413 and 450 from the Los Padres Council in California finally got their chance to hike Philmont's backcountry. Their last two Philmont treks were canceled due to the Ute Park fire in 2018, and their rescheduled trek in 2020 was canceled because of the COVID-19 pandemic. All right. Okay, that was a lot. We're here. Okay, so we'll do one to keep it in and advance, and then we'll go from there. So we'll start with this one.
End.
In.
Out.
Out.
Is that out, Tim? Okay. Out.
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 Out. Hey, Tim, I think I can't hear you again. Just FYI.
Thank you.
There you go. There you go. Out. This one was out, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Out.
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 I didn't hear you, Kathy. Sorry.
Out. I'm sorry.
You're fine. Out.
In.
In.
Yeah. Mm. In.
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 Out.
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 I
I
didn't hear
said
you.
out. I
I
said
didn't hear
out.
you, Tim. Sorry. What did you say, Tim?
In.
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 In. In.
Out.
Out.
What was that, Tim? Sorry.
Out.
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 In.
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 Out.
Out as well.
Out.
I think this is a student, and I just want to tell this student, that sounded like the guy was the story. And we just didn't, they noted that they'd only have one photograph of them. And it sounded like there was more to that. I'd go back to this town and follow this guy. These other pictures can be transitional and scene setters, but that guy seems like an interesting person to me. For whatever it's worth.
Oh, it's worth a lot. Again, it's a learning experience. Out.
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 In.
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 Out.
Out.
You said out, Tim. Sorry. Out.
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 Out. Okay. So we are down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess at this point you can kind of talk about ones that stuck out to you. I saw some of you were like taking notes. That's good. We can look at individual captions. We can look at stories big again for longer. It's kind of whatever you want to do from this point.
I kind of would like to see them big again. There were so many of them in that first round that like this one, I didn't, it's been 23 other stories since we've seen it. If that's okay by you, it doesn't have to be long. We can actually do like, I just need a quick visual refresher.
Okay. Do you want to just look at, do you want to look at each story for like 3 seconds big again?
Yeah.
To kind of give yourself a reminder. Is that cool? Okay.
That'd be
All right, we'll just start. I'm not going to read the summary unless you want me to do that. And I can read individual captions too at any point after you look at it, if that's okay too, right? Okay. It's that one. This one. All right. So those are your 8. What are your thoughts?
Should we go through again maybe and do 2
You want to do that?
to keep
Okay with
them?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, that
we can do
works.
that. Okay. So this one, 2 to keep it in.
Out.
In,
In,
In.
out,
out,
Oh, I missed it, Angie. Sorry.
It said in.
In, out,
I said out,
out, out,
in,
In.
in,
out,
Out.
did you say out, Tim? Out,
Out.
I said out,
oh, okay. Sorry, didn't hear you, Kathy. Out,
in,
In.
and Tim, you said in. Okay. In,
out,
say in,
Yeah, I'm gonna say in.
okay. In,
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 what
In.
say you? And in.
Waiting for
Okay.
me. Okay.
Oh, I mean, it's in. I was just for people to hear what it was.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
In. Okay, so we are down to 5.
The insulin one jumps out at me. But I guess I would have liked to see more of the woman juggling the boxes. Just looking at these pictures, it just seems like such an overwhelming thing to have to deal with. But going between 3 or 4 different families, it kind of loses a little bit of the focus, I guess. I mean, I know it's about insulin, but maybe it could have benefited from focusing on one family.
What's the bowling picture in this? I was trying to kind of
Ah.
feel the
Yeah.
flow of this.
I'll read the caption. Victoria Sumner, second from right, last with Candace Haynes McInnes while bowling in Cincinnati on October 23rd, 2021. Even though bowling requires a low level of physical exertion, Hayes McInnes experienced low blood sugar as a result of participating in this activity. Type 1 diabetics are recommended to always carry food with them in preparation for low blood sugar episodes.
And can I have the caption on the first picture?
This one?
Yep.
Antoinette Worsham wears a shirt with a photograph of her daughter, Antavia Lee Worsham, while sitting for a portrait inside of her home in Cincinnati on October 15th, 2021. Antavia laid down while feeling sick and did not get back up again. An autopsy report identified the cause of death as diabetic ketoacidosis, or DKA. Antavia, a type 1 diabetic, had been rationing her insulin due to concerns about affording the medication, Antoinette said.
I am not feeling this one as strongly as the two of you, because of the thing like the bowling picture.
Yeah.
Like it's something that would be draining. Like I want to see her kind of, tired from the bowling. I feel like it's very arm's length.
Mhm.
Compared to what else is in of these five, this one to me is the weakest of the bunch. It just cohesively doesn't hold together.
Yeah.
I think it's a great story to be told. I just don't know if following multiple people is holding it together as a picture story. Maybe if you had the ability to have these almost kind of vignette things, but I feel like we're jumping in and not getting enough to connect with people.
Okay. I just moved it to that side because you kind of all were nodding your heads when Kathy K was saying that. So that's why I moved it over there.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because part of why I voted for that one in, because I think we have, 3 or 4 like health stories in here. And it's been really interesting to see the similarities, but also the differences in how the photographers approach trying to tell these stories. Because some like this one, for example, it is a story and it leans almost closer to like an essay. And it has like really strong singles, but it might not all work very well together. Whereas I think in the vaccine hesitancy story, that one flows together a bit more because you're focusing on one single person who's doing a service for multiple people. So even though we're going to different places and we're getting these vignettes, it's still kind of carried by this one person. I think there's still like one picture that I think it's the third to last picture. Yes, that one that didn't really feel like it fit in there. But at the same time, like reading the caption, I can kind of see like I see what they're going for in terms of like what they're trying to say with the picture.
Okay.
No, I think this is really well done. It's got some nice rhythms to it, and it's also a way of showing that you might have like the spine of the story is vaccine hesitancy, and you have this nurse practitioner who's kind of leading the charge, but you don't need to see her in every image. Like the transitional images, kind of her presence is still felt because the actions are still being done. Like the effort is still being made. So I think this photographer did a very nice job of kind of taking us through the different phases of what was going on in this community.
And the lead picture for this, I really enjoy, because it looks like this is at like a bar or like a dive bar sort of situation.
Yeah,
And
shot for a shot.
yeah, and like I don't know, there's something like in the context of like the last like 2 and change years, like there's something really quirky about the like I saw another picture, and I think it was like another like vaccine sort of program, but it was also taking place like in a velodrome. And so like the photographer waited until like a race was happening and like the vaccine is happening, like the vaccination is happening in the middle of the picture. And this kind of reminds me of that, of it's taking a very commonplace thing, but you're putting it in an abnormal space. And that just it drew me more into this story.
I hope somebody's done that picture story. I haven't seen it yet, but like all the strange places that vaccines were given, because it was getting it out anywhere you could, I mean, I got mine in Ford Field, in a football stadium. So, but that's not as cool as a bar or a velodrome, frankly.
And the beer is probably more expensive there too.
Yeah.
Right. All right. What else?
Just on this one, I think it could be made a little stronger by taking out one of the vehicle images. I think the final image is really strong for a final image, so I would maybe keep that one just for the photographer. They're just very similar images.
Yeah, I mean, is there an image from inside the car as they're like
Yeah.
driving to their next location or whatever? If it's a rural county, like it's kind of like the guy with trying to get the cell signal from the grave, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. I agree. Yeah, just a little bit of redundancy. Can we look at the Rivers story? That is some dirty work you got to do there, but God bless them.
And this is like this again, like this is really well done. And I'm a sucker for like a good transition picture, and I think it's the third one on the second row. Yeah, I I think it's a mixture of like the bottles and the fence, and then those leaves that are all kind of shaped like hearts. Like it all works. It like oddly works really well together. If you kept it as a single, it wouldn't work, but it is a really, in the context of the story, it's a really interesting sort of transition. And I think the picture after that, so yeah, it's taking a single elements like these bottles, for example, and you're taking the bottles and you're transitioning us from one place to another. And that's something that like in a lot of these stories can be like kind of missing, is having like what are the transitional pieces that help to keep the story flowing and to keep it interesting, or to take us from something that's tight to something that might be wide, and then we're going from tight to wide to medium, or some sort of arrangement that keeps us interested and invested.
I think the only picture that I kind of wish that I would have seen, if you look at photo 11, it's kind of them living on the barge, but something a little more intimate, I think, like cooking or brushing teeth or something that just kind of like, I don't get a sense of living. I get a sense of working and maybe taking a break, but not necessarily living on the barge. So that would be my only critique. I do think this photographer did a really nice job with this story. There's a lot of variety here and a lot of nice moments and a lot of really good scene.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we have these two. Anybody want to?
Could I have the caption on the last image in this?
In this story?
Yeah, I just want to know what the photographer's thinking.
Snow settles on a field in Union City, Ohio on November 14th, 2021. After the Castle Bravo test at Bikini Atoll on March 1st, 1954, nuclear fallout settled like snowflakes covering Rongelap Atoll. The locals thought it was snow until it burned their skin with just a touch. According to the National Cancer Institute, a projected 55% of all cancers on Rongelap might be attributed to fallout exposure. Since Medicare and Medicaid have been reinstated to the COFA agreement, the Marshallese community experiences a much easier time accessing healthcare, though it will take time to recover from the 25-year period in which they were left without.
So kind of a symbolic image.
It could have been coincidental, but Josh, like as you were reading the description, like when you mentioned the nuclear fallout, that was when that picture appeared. So like that, like I feel like that was like complete coincidence, but
it was. I guarantee you that it was.
Yeah, yeah. But also like having the caption in there, that actually does. It is like it's cheeky, but like it, I like that as an ending.
There's part of me that wishes there was more of that, like them kind of, I don't know, taking a little more artistic liberty with the story in that regard. I always love seeing that, where somebody is articulating visually a mood or a moment that isn't necessarily include a person. I don't know. I'm just, I think it's effective. It would have been nice to have a rhythm of it, I think, through the story.
Definitely, especially when all the other pictures that are outside look like they're in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like a little bit disconnected without a person in there, but I do like that symbolism. They got a lot of nice moments, and we're there for important events, like when the ambulance arrived.
Yeah, the photographer did a nice job with this story.
Okay. Then there's this one right here.
I found interesting because we have almost two central characters in this. You have one person who passed, and you have another person who is now the recipient, and you're trying to I think it's, I might be thinking of a different. So the last picture is showing the person who's passed and keeping them as a relevant piece in the story. But then for a large chunk of the piece, it's the person who's the recipient. And so in a way, I couldn't tell if we have the recipient interacting with the family of the person who had passed, if that's clear as mud.
Yeah, I mean, I think in picture 7 and picture 10 and picture 11, this is all the other girl's family.
Okay.
So this is picture 7, and you said picture 10, correct?
Yeah, the dinner, I think, is, Jocelyn, her donor parent, shop at a thrift store with her family. So they spend time together. I mean, it said that in the thingamabob.
In the caption.
Okay, yeah. So they end up interacting a ton in this. That's really cool.
Yeah, this is a very sweet story, and I think the photographer did a very good job of kind of keeping that rhythm of the donor family in there. I mean, that little detail, picture 6 of her hanging from her little memory string there is really sweet.
Okay.
So we have to order them, don't we?
So we have 5 here. We need to you need to decide, do you want to keep all these in to award them HM at least? Is that kind of where we're at right now with these 5?
Okay with
The only
that.
one I'm not a fan of is the insulin story. I just don't think it holds together well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would be fine with getting rid of that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's vote on this one to at least keep it in for an HM.
Out.
Out.
Oh,
Okay. Out. Oh wait, not that one. Out. Okay. So then the remaining 4.
I would love to read the captions for the Marshall Islands story. Can we do that?
We can.
That's a long one. Oh,
Yeah, it's kind of the caption and the
okay.
summary in there, but the caption for this photo looks like is: Jacinta Betty kisses her daughter Adrienne in their yard in Union City, Ohio on September 9th, 2021. Jacinta moved to the U.S. from the Republic of Marshall Islands after falling in love with her boyfriend Michael while he and his dad visited the islands. Shelley-Ann Aknalong holds Adrienne and Amari back from playing with her grandmother Lorraine's oxygen tank in Union City, Ohio on November 11th, 2021. It's very important in Marshallese culture that one's parents are well taken care of. In the Joash family, both aging parents Jay and Lorraine are cared for by their children with other younger relatives. With Lorraine dealing with a tumor and Jay recovering from a stroke he experienced in 2017, the return of Medicare has greatly improved both their well-being and their children's ability to help them get the care they need. Lorraine finds herself hospitalized frequently, although she would prefer to be home. Robinson Lee shows his Republic of the Marshall Islands passport in Salina, Ohio on November 7th, 2021. In his experience, few people in Ohio have immediately known about the Marshall Islands and the nation's relationship with the U.S., resulting in rejected passports and other services being denied to him and others. We are the children they neglected, he says, of U.S. government assistance. Barash Joash talks with his mother, Lorraine, before she is taken to the hospital in Union City, Ohio on October 20th, 2021. Lorraine has had ongoing health issues since the early 2010s. It began with asthma, which she received treatments for, but progressed to the point where she passed out and slipped into a coma during a routine visit with her family in Arkansas. She was comatose for 8 months. Then they found a tumor in her lung. Many Marshallese community members attribute their experiences with cancer to the Cold War era testing in the Republic of the Marshall Islands. Of her experience at the hospitals before Medicare was reinstated, Lorraine said that they treat me, but not real good because I don't have any insurance. Lorraine's daughter, Primrose, believes that the long period of time without Medicare has negatively impacted the health of many in the Marshallese community. Some of them don't even go to the hospital because they were like, what are they going to do? Just put a Band-Aid on me and say, go home. Go home? Sorry, question. Barash Joash looks away while Adriel Ann, Jacinta, and Michael Joash watch the ambulance take Lorraine to the hospital from their home in Union City. At the time, they weren't sure if she would be admitted to the hospital for care or simply returned in the morning. Lorraine is only ever home for 1 or 2 weeks before she begins having trouble breathing, and her family must call an ambulance to see her go. Her daughter Primrose sent in Lorraine's Medicare application as soon as she possibly could once her eligibility had been reinstated, and believes her care has been drastically improved since then. Lorraine's husband, Jay, waits for her to return home. Whenever Lorraine is not in the hospital, one of her children will help her clean her tracheostomy, which allows access for an artificial breathing tube to be inserted directly through a hole in her neck and take her medications. The treatment process for Jay has been different. In 2017, Jay still worked. He had a job that covered his health care and paid the family's bills. However, one day at a family friend's birthday party, he had a stroke. He sat down at a table and he moved to stand up. The right side of his entire body felt all wrong. Because he couldn't work, Jay was laid off. When the insurance plan covered by his employer ran out, Jay hadn't fully recovered and was still dealing with mobility issues on the right side of his entire body. While he could afford it, he bought his own insurance from Cobra. Eventually, this ran out as well. He still hasn't healed. Michael helps Jay out of the car after they drove an hour and a half to visit Lorraine in Kindred Hospital in Dayton on September 9th, 2021. According to the Johns Hopkins Medicine Center, after 6 months, improvements from a stroke are possible, but will be much slower. Most stroke patients reach a relatively steady state at this point. For some, this means a full recovery. Others will have ongoing impairments. Since he has become eligible for Medicare once again, the family's had Jay on a waiting list to get an appointment with a local physical therapy center. He had been on this waiting list since the early summer of 2021. In December, he finally received an appointment. His sons, Michael and Barash, will be taking him to each session that will help him along his healing journey. Michael Joash Center hangs out with his brother Ishi Joash, right, and his friend Joseph Momita left after watching a volleyball tournament in Salina, Ohio on September 18th, 2021. Quote, "It's just me returning the favor," says Michael Joash on caring for his aging father. Jay, "It's just our duties to return the care and love he has given us all these years. The responsibility of caring for older generations is big and one commonly shouldered throughout the Marshallese community." Lydia Bolkheim left, and Primrose Joash Center discussed shipments for the Relique Ratak Alili store, one of 2 Marshallese groceries in Salina, Ohio on November 13th. Lydia often helps people translate their online Medicare applications out of the store, which she runs with her fiance, Robinson Lee. Robinson has been planning to apply for grant funding to provide more Medicare application assistance, but the Marshallese Coalition has recently been disbanded following the approval of Medicaid for the community. Quote, "I am just waiting for something that can help," he says. Lydia's mother's side of the family were living on Rongelap Atoll at the time of the largest nuclear detonation tested on Bikini Atoll called Castle Bravo. Regarded as the worst radiological disaster in U.S. history, this explosion carried nuclear fallout along the wind currents to Rongelap. Lydia, along with many of her family members, has dealt with cancer, which she attributes to the tests. Because of restrictive Medicare availability, she has had to travel to other states for care in the past. Robinson Lee cries after listening to the anthem of Bikini Atoll, the place that he and his family were forcibly removed from to make way for nuclear testing in the Pacific during the 1950s in Salina, Ohio on November 14th, 2021. Most of my ancestors are gone now, or at least those who left Bikini were and were promised they could go back, says Robinson, owner of the Relique Ratak El Ely store in Salina, Ohio. Quote, the struggle that they went through, the hard times that they went through, the starvation that they went through. Every time I hear the anthem, it reminds me of those stories and the broken promises. Mike Capel and Liner Bolcom talk about Liner's hopes to go to college for a career in dermatology in Salina on November 14th, 2021. Mike and other community members help younger students find their goals in life every week by going in and mentoring them, providing great role models from within the Marshallese community. He and the other members have found that this program is one of the best ways to help youth find what they really want to do in life so they can earn a living. When these jobs provide healthcare, the individuals will be less beholden to the restrictive limits of Medicare. And we read that caption.
Thank you for doing that. I wanted to see how it held together and who was who.
Okay.
That really helped.
Cool. Do you want to start ordering some stuff around here a little bit? Does anybody have something they want to put in the first place position?
I would say this one as first.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
The photographer spent a lot of time with them, and there's emotion and good moments.
Okay.
Agreed.
Why don't we just go ahead and vote on this one for first place then?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. This is this one. Okay. All right. Does anybody have a nomination for second place?
I'm thinking the river as my second place.
Tim or Angie, do you have one you want to put in that position?
I'm gonna go for the rivers.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. So this one for second place.
Yes.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. Not refresh. Rename. And then for third or HM, we have the vaccine nurse and the donor family and the recipient.
I think vaccine hesitancy for third.
Same.
Tim, you're nodding your head.
Yep.
Okay. So this for third.
Yep.
Yes.
And then a HM for our transplant.
Hang on, this thing keeps popping down. Let me bring that up. Okay. And then this one for an honorable mention.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Nice job. These are really great selection of stories. That was tough. I don't know
Yeah.
about you guys, but I was just kind of like, wow.
Yeah, at first, when he said 23, I was a little worried, but then and then like after the first round of judging, I was like, okay, this we still have a good chunk. And I think we're down to 8, and those 8, I think 4, those other 4, honestly weren't bad. They might have just needed a little bit of extra work or a little extra time.